Zscaler is a mission-critical application. The feeling of being able to secure 48% of Fortune 500 companies who depend upon you to do all this business, it's just very, very exciting to say you're making a difference in the world.
People famously describe how hard company building is. Elon's analogy of chewing glass and staring into the abyss. Do you agree with that?
If it becomes a passion or hobby you like. In some of the past companies, like one of them got acquired, then the acquirer just crushed it and killed it. In the other case, it went on and on. Even though it's smaller, but within that, it flourished. So it feels very good. I think that's what every entrepreneur feels. It's fun to see what you created at its own.
Welcome to Grit. I'm Jubin, partner at Kleiner Perkins, a show where we go beyond the highlight reel and explore the personal and professional challenges of building history-making companies.
Today, we're at Zscaler's headquarters interviewing Jay Chaudhry. Our second conversation, his fifth company, the first four of which he has sold, the fifth, Zscaler, which he owns 40% of, has created the wealthiest Indian American of our time. He's incredible. Enjoy the episode. I'm thrilled to be doing this. I don't know if you, can I tell you what I heard about our part one and then get your reaction to what you heard about our part one?
Please.
I had several people reach out to me that were kind of blown away by your demeanor. Here's maybe specifically what
I think your style of questioning was unique and different, and that's what I heard from many people.
Okay.
I had one investor who I saw last week at the Morgan Stanley conference who said, yeah, I listened to that great podcast. Now my wife and I and my kids, we go for a bonding walk after dinner.
That is awesome.
Right, so, but go ahead. I interrupted.
No. The thing that one question that people asked me was, okay, can I just go through the list and then get your answer? Because I've been dying to follow up on these questions.
Yeah, please.
The first was, this is his fifth company. Mm-hmm. People famously describe how hard company building is. I have a pretty firsthand look into how hard they actually are. I think Elon's analogy of chewing glass and staring into the abyss is not too far off from what I've seen in many cases. Do you agree with that? And if so, like one is Herculean, then three more concurrently doesn't even make sense. And then now building Zscaler and it's a 30, like that. How does that work?
I think it is truly, if it becomes a passion or hobby you like, it makes it easier. Here's the difference. If I look for and say, when do I get done and retire? Then it's then you're not really having fun. Okay. Then you get into a milestone, I get done, I declare victory, I move into something else. My wife and I talk about the fact that, can I retire? What will I do? How boring or tough the life could be when you're not doing something you enjoy. But I think people have fun in many areas. Maybe if you look at some of the areas of science, there's some scientists who love their work. They do the work. They don't even get paid much. But they do the research stuff they do. I mean, in entrepreneurship, probably it gets linked to money more. But even take some artists and all those people, they do a lot of work. It's not easy. But for them, it's easy. It's fun. So honestly, I don't know what will I do.
Have you, in the conversations with your wife, do you have a blueprint for what could be after? Is there an after? Is this company going down when you go down? Is there an after?
No. This is meant to be. I mean, companies are supposed to last. I mean, if they don't, then you really are not successful, right? Yeah, we talk about having our next startup as a non-profit entity to help giving back. So it's a different kind of thing, but I think of how Bill Gates actually had driven the stuff. After he left Microsoft, he drove his stuff almost like a business. So how do we help in two areas? One is education, second is health, to help the world, especially the needy people who need it the most.
Sorry, can I ask you, today, you just had an amazing earnings report. The company's growing almost 30%. It's over $2 billion of revenue. I mean, it's going. Yeah. But let me ask you this: if for some reason, which wouldn't happen, but if for some reason in 5 years you step down, and in 10 years the company starts to fail, do you think it will be a failure? Do you think this would not be successful? Do you think you wouldn't have been successful?
It's disappointing. It becomes very disappointing. I mean, in some of my past companies, one of them got acquired, then the acquirer just crushed it and killed it. In the other case, it went on and on. Even though it's smaller, but within that, it flourished. So it feels very good when the company carries on. I think that's what every entrepreneur feels when I talk to others too. It's fun to see what you created carries on.
Do you think it's part of your legacy? Do you believe in that idea?
Haven't really thought about legacy as a legacy, but I think something you create succeeds is a wonderful thing. It's disappointing to see you did all the stuff and it just goes down.
And does this, many entrepreneurs describe to me this existential fear that all of a sudden everything's going to go to hell. It's all going to be, at any given point, at any twist and turn, things could just fall apart. And these are people that run gigantic companies. Does that exist for you?
So if you think about enterprise company versus consumer company.
Sure.
The answer depends upon what kind of business you are in. In the consumer business, things go up and down pretty quickly. Consumers are pretty fickle. This device, that device here, things happen. BlackBerry was good, went down, even though BlackBerry was widely used by enterprises. In the enterprise space, things take a long time to be successful. And you really have to screw it up for it to go down. And every enterprise company takes a long time to really go down. I mean, if you look at even Microsoft, had done well, and under Obama for many years, it was written off as something that's going down. But it's kind of sat there for many years.
Yeah.
And then Satya came and really jolted it and brought it in the right direction. I mean, even some of these companies, look at HP. I mean, I admired this company for a long, long time, from my college days. And then I saw it kind of just for the last 20 years.
Yeah. Do you think about, let's just pull on this Microsoft analogy, where once Steve relinquished control, things started to get better. Once Steve got control, things started to get worse, right? Once it got from Bill.
Right.
Once the founder CEO left.
Right.
Do you think about, at some point, you're going to do your thing? Do you think about that?
Yeah.
How to avoid that?
Yeah. Making sure you have a good successor is important. Man, it's one of the $50 million question, because there's no simple answer of outsider versus insiders. I do think that in our kind of business, you need somebody who comes with a strong technical background. You just can't have someone who is a pure salesperson, because they just don't appreciate it. I saw it firsthand at IBM, when IBM at its peak days, John Akers was the CEO. He just didn't know any technology. I mean, we were seeing, I was at IBM, Steve Jobs had started a company called Next. It was a kind of based on a flavor of Linux. And it was kind of a workstation, like Sun and others. And IBM had a workstation called RISC 6000. Steve Jobs sold the idea to John Akers, and without even talking to his team, he kind of said, we're going to give you $50 million, $100 million, we're going to bring it in, blah, 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 kind of stuff. And everyone with an IBM saying, man, what is this? But Akers was enchanted with this stuff, and he moved on. Eventually, this thing didn't work. It got booted out. But there are many examples where I think things don't go well. I think Cisco is struggling with that. I think Cisco needed Satya to really turn it around.
And maybe back to the original point about how this is truly a hobby for you. Can you really succession plan if this is your life's calling? Meaning how to attract Satya to run Zscaler moving forward.
Right.
He'd need to probably look you in the eye and say, all right, within a few years, this is going to be my show. But I have a feeling, you tell me if I'm wrong, that like, you love doing this, you know?
Yeah, that's
Does the
true.
question make sense?
It does, but I really like innovation and engaging with customers. Then I'm focused on creating the next great service and engaging with the customers at two levels. One, selling the broad, big vision. Two, showing them the new, exciting stuff you built, they're going to help with. I mean, today too, I'm more biased. My time is more spent on customer engagements on one front and new innovations we're doing on the second front. I spend a lot less time on mature products.
Yeah.
I spend a lot more time on doing operational excellence. Okay, are we really run in a proper cadence of operational excellence the way it should be? Not really. Okay, so I would rather, I think I would rather do some of those things and have someone run the company at some time.
And, okay, can I get to my next question that everybody asked me?
Yes.
On the traveling piece, first of all, everybody said, Juven, do you believe him when he says he doesn't have a plane? And I said, definitely. And they said, well, how could you be the richest Indian American? How could you be worth $13 billion or whatever and not have a plane? And I'm like, no. He doesn't just not have a plane. I actually believe him when he says that he doesn't fly in first in business. I believe him.
So I've been switching. I mean, I've been upgrading.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You're treating yourself.
On the longer flights across the continent.
Like to India.
Or to Europe. I'm taking, business class. The first time I did was in India about a year ago. I want to reach 6 cities in 5 days. Okay. So it's between Mumbai and Bangalore and Delhi and Lucknow and Hyderabad and Chandigarh. That's the only way to do it. So it makes sense. So I am using it where it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. If I need to reach between Chicago and Cincinnati and Cleveland,
right,
and Detroit, if I go somewhere, I would rather spend 3 days or 2 days in 4 cities.
Yeah.
And do 2 meetings through noon here, 2 meetings in the afternoon, and 2 meetings next day. So in 2 days, I can cover 4 cities and 8 great meetings at least.
Put another way, you'll spend money on efficiency but not comfort.
I think I don't see the difference between sitting, there's not a whole lot of difference. Sure, the business class is a lot better than the others, so that's okay. I get upgraded quite often because of my status and all this stuff. It's not when my admin looks for it, she doesn't look for business. She looks for time and what's that plane available to fly when I want to fly with my time availability. Okay. Because starting at that time, ending there is more important than a flight with a business class, unless it's a longer flight.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you feel guilt upgrading? Do you feel, or if you spend money, how you would define it as superfluous, like just not necessary?
Not really. I just think in terms of efficiency and productivity.
Yeah.
My time is the most important thing. So I am optimizing my time more and more and more. For efficiency is picking up as more and more customers want to meet me, and that helps the customers and us both. So I do take advantage of wherever I need to. But yeah, there's a little bit ROI in the back of the mind. I mean, I need to go to New York. I'm taking a red eye on United or private. It's no different.
Yeah.
So why spend whatever amount of money on there? And then from New York, if I need to do 4 cities in 2 days, that makes good sense.
Yep.
Then I can get in and out anytime.
Yep.
So yeah, it's
and you fly a red eye to New York.
Many times.
Why?
It's depending on the day and time. If I have a busy day and going out there, you kill the whole day.
Yep.
Coming back, you actually gain time. You take a 6:30 flight, you land at 9:30. That's not a problem. So it becomes a little bit of a time thing. What do I do? Do I want to lose my productive day of talking to customers?
Do you sleep on the plane when you take a red eye?
I do. I'm a good sleeper.
So even sitting upright, you sleep no problem?
Yes. There's weird stories about my sleep.
Tell me.
This was a few years, my alma mater, IIT BSU, invited me in 2015 or 16. They gave me a alumni of the Century Award actually. Okay. Nice day. So I had to go. Okay. They insisted, and I couldn't really turn them down because they're recognizing me. So I decided.
Where is this?
Varanasi, Banaras, India.
Yep.
So I got on a flight. The flight was to connect through Taipei, okay, and then to Delhi. And I got on the plane. This was actually at that time. This was a economy class, okay. And I got, and the plane took off. Then I woke up. I look at this watch, and I look at the television screen. It kind of said, 12 hours to go. What's going on? Something isn't right. The time is not adding up. And so I talked to the air hostess, say, what's the disconnect here? She said, don't you know? Okay. So the plane flew for 2 hours. Someone felt sick. It turned around, came to SFO, changed, got the plane. I just slept through.
The whole thing?
The whole thing. I had no idea what happened. I'm a good sleeper. Okay. So I've always been a good sleeper. In school, I had a hard time waking up. My sleep was so sound. I would have my mom say, please wake me up. And I would just fall asleep. And I would put a glass of water next to my bed and say, can you please throw some water on my eyes so I can wake up? But I'm a good sleeper. I'm fortunate.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the next question that everybody asked me is how could it be possible that he's accumulated this amount of wealth relative to like Satya and Sundar? And my answer was, well, because he owns 40% of a very meaningful company. Is the reason that you still today, you own 40% of Zscaler, right?
Yeah, I haven't sold it.
You haven't sold
Hardly
anything.
right.
Not a thing.
Maybe a little here and there. Yeah.
Nothing
My kids' trust have sold a little bit.
And I guess the question is, you did the first rounds with your own money?
I kept on putting money as long as it was needed. So I didn't think about raising money because I didn't need to.
Ever?
So I did. I mean, I never used money. I raised, you can call it 2 rounds. The first was the CEO of RSA, this guy, Art Coviello, he came in 2012. So, and we were selling, we're not really, we're losing. I mean, I put about $50 million in this company. Okay.
50.
Yeah. So he wanted to buy the company. I said no. Then he wanted to invest the company. I said no. And then he kind of insisted that, So I gave him a price tag. I thought he will say you're crazy. So I told him $500 million market valuation. And he said, I'll take it.
How much revenue were you doing at the time?
Hardly any. Probably a bit under 20 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so so he agreed to put money, and he wanted to put, I think it was $50 million. I said no, I won't take more than $20 million, or 20 or 25 was the number. And it was a fun deal because he hates the legal stuff. Wilson Sonsini was. My attorney, Raj Judge, was there, the guy. Do you know Raj Judge?
No.
He's a great guy. He's a partner there. He's involved in most of the startups in the valley. So when they sent the agreement, and when they asked for some of the demanding terms, Raj said, sorry, Jay won't take it. We'll walk away. So we got almost everything we wanted. For example, they wanted the first right of refusal, and we said, no, we're not going to give you a first right of refusal. He's a small investor.
What else?
And if I went to, I don't want to be viewed as a company associated with this company. So Ravi from Lightspeed had been talking to me for quite some time. I don't know if you know Ravi. Yeah. He had been staying close to him. I said, hey, there's an opportunity to put $5 million in Zscaler. If you want to take it, the terms are all agreed upon. And he said, good. I mean, that was done to really show independence rather than association with just one company.
Right.
But we never used that money. Okay. And then the pre-IPO was done it was about $100 or $110 million, which we never touched. So we had about 16, 17% ownership of investors in the company when we went public.
Wow.
So typically, VC companies have about 18, 20% employees. The rest is kind of others. My employees had about 30% of ownership in the company.
So you're saying you could reallocate more to employees?
Exactly. That's a good thing because they work very hard.
Having an operation this big in India, how involved and present do you think you have to be in order to stand that up effectively? Do you think that you have, obviously you grew up in India, do you think that you have to be from there in order to be successful there? Do you have any operating principles running so much of the business there?
I think having someone who was born and raised in India to be a critical part of the operation is important. Even though I was born and raised there, I never worked in India. So I have zero experience of working environment, though at Zscaler I learned quite a bit for India. Before that I did not. My principle was India has so many smart people. If you can find the right one, they're going to do the right thing. Early on, when the development was starting, I opened the Bangalore office before I opened our office here in Santa Clara.
No way.
Yeah.
How big was the company at that point?
So we started with 10 people, opening company. Okay, I had a team of 10 people plus class, 11 people plus me and my wife, so 12 people. Okay, so all developers other than my wife and I, who couldn't code. Okay, everyone else could code, right? So we had about, out of those 11 people, 6 were in India, 5 were here. Okay, so we opened the Bangalore office, and then we got an office space here, and I mean within months, but it was good. So early on, I went to Bangalore every other month for 2 weeks for the first year, or maybe first 15 months.
Every other month for 2 weeks.
Right.
So 2 out of 8 weeks.
Yeah. So, yeah, because there's nothing else to do other than developmental product management.
And you'd spend 2 weeks at a time there. Yeah. What were you doing?
So recruiting was number 1, and doing product management was number 2, because I was the product manager to start with.
And was your wife going back and forth with you, or were the kids at home?
Kids are at home, so yeah, he came a couple of times, but most of the time.
Because she started the company with you.
Yeah, but she would take care of things, yeah.
And so okay, that was some of the questions that I've gotten. Can I keep going?
Yeah.
On hiring. There are legends about you that you get the absolute most out of people. And they stay with you for a while, but you really get the most out of people. My answer, they asked how. My answer was, I think it's because he gets the most out of himself all the time, and people just follow his lead. But I'm curious what you would say.
Yeah, I think you need to lead by example, which is very important. When they see you going the extra mile, they go the extra mile. If the CEO is spending a lot of time on golf courses, it gets very hard to tell others. We like to say, we don't ask anyone else to do anything that you're not willing to do yourself. I try to make sure that I am being very fair and taking care of people who go the extra mile, who really are making the difference. Okay. I feel like it's my responsibility to go to them, to promote them, to do extra, reward with equity before they have to ask. Okay. But that group of people is generally very small. The group of people who are really into it, the passion and drive, is not large. The bigger the company gets, the more people you get from bigger companies, the harder it gets to keep that passionate and driven culture. And that's one of the things we are working on right now. But I think finding brilliant people is good. I have a rule here from very early on: if you find someone who walks on water, there's always a rack open for that person. And we have probably done a few dozen people that way.
Give me an example.
You came across someone who is outstanding and passionate and knows the stuff, and you say, aha, I should be hiring that person. But in your plan, you kind of have all the heads. And you create room, you hire that person.
And if you were to unpack what walking on water actually looks like in your mind,
right,
what is that?
I think it starts with people who are passionate and driven. Everything else is secondary. You could be the smartest person in the room, but if you aren't passionate and driven, it really doesn't matter. And you can see through passion quite often of people. And then can this person come and make a difference? I mean, there's some very sharp people out there. My chief architect, Kailash, is brilliant. He just comes up with ideas that no one thinks about. He would think about, how do I make this system 10x faster rather than 50% faster? And he would do those things. So looking for that kind of people, so that's on the engineering side. The people on the product management side who have a great skill set. People on the sales and customer side. So you're looking for people. I have interviewed lots of people. I interviewed lots and lots of people. without any role in mind many, many times. The two objectives: one, I'm looking for smart, sharp people we could recruit. Two, I'm looking for learning from their experiences. See, every interview teaches a few things about what they've done, how it's done, what worked, what has worked in their previous company. Because every company has some goodness. Every employee has some goodness. So are there a few things you can learn and apply to your business? Ends up being an interesting way to look and say, we could borrow those ideas.
How much time do you spend interviewing?
Lots.
Like how much? Like if I were to look at your calendar for this week or last week, what percentage do you think is actually spent interviewing?
Interviews end up being generally on the weekend. When the phone is not ringing, there are no distractions. And probably somewhere between 3 to 5 interviews every weekend.
3 to 5 interviews between Saturday and Sunday. You do them at home? Do you come to the office?
Combination, if some of them are video calls, some of them are in person, based on how important, likely
senior they are.
this person is, or how critical the role is. That's all.
And how do you, that's fascinating. How do you conduct an interview? Do you have a certain style?
I get more out of the questions they ask than the questions I ask. It gives me a little bit of understanding of how are they thinking, what are they thinking about. And then I have my own set of questions, but I look forward to their thinking and their questions more than my questions.
Do you let them lead with questions?
No, it's generally good to leave it open-ended. My questions are open-ended, and let them start with open-ended stuff. I do, to make it more productive, I'm always my time is the biggest thing. I'm always trying to figure out how to
get as much out of it as you can
in a short amount of time. So rather than trying to spend 15, 20 minutes explaining Zscaler, what we do, how we do, I send them a few resources and say, here is some of the stuff. If you read, you'll have a good understanding of what, how, where, why, and then we'll have a conversation from there. So even that helps a lot, because now I can see what they listened, what they read, and I expect that that would answer 10 questions. That may raise another 8 questions in their mind. What kind of questions did they come up with after they read it? Some of that thing helps quite a bit.
Yeah,
right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And when you're hiring the people that are walking on water, when you see the person, do you usually see it within a first interview?
The area where I have failed many times is to figuring out the passion and drive. I can figure out who is sharp and who's not sharp, understand. That's not hard. You can get through the work they've done, how and whatnot. Where I have failed many times, where the person was brilliant, great presence, great communication, and great conversations, but they aren't passionate. They just don't have the fire and desire. Then they come, then they don't learn, they don't work hard. If they don't work hard, you can talk at 30,000 foot level. I think to be a good leader, you need to be able to go a little deep. If you've been in the trenches from time to time, you actually have a better appreciation of how some of that stuff needs to be done. If you haven't, then you kind of are generalizing everything. So the hardest thing is finding that passion and drive. So I get help from our CHRO to see between him and me. We try to figure out if these people are really, because everyone comes and says, hey, they make a great case, I've done this, everything looks like the results are amazing.
And when you say passion, what you're really saying is hard work.
In the sense that, you're into it. When you're into it, you kind of go the extra mile to get results. Yes.
My definition of this is what I call dolphining. So if you think about a dolphin in the water,
Right.
up in the air at 10,000 feet, breaching the water at 5,000 feet, and then underneath the water at 1,000 feet.
Right.
And I have often found that the dolphins, the executives that are truly great, that can operate across all of these altitudes, only go to 1,000 feet if they care. They're only going into the water if they're so eager to solve the problem that they know they have to get to ground level in order to form their opinion of what it looks like at 10,000 feet.
That's extremely well put. Great analogy. But that's exactly how I would think.
And I think it's very difficult to find someone, I think it's easy to find someone that can talk a big game about their passion for security,
Right.
zero trust,
Right.
building a big company,
Right.
leadership,
Right.
Zscaler.
Right.
All of that stuff is very actually surface level
Yep.
relative to, I think the difficult part that you were alluding to is going into the water.
Yeah, then you have real understanding and appreciation of stuff.
Yes.
That's important.
How do you know if passion is what you're looking for?
Right.
And if we mutually agree that maybe some definition of passion is going into the details.
Right. Right.
How can you figure that out?
So you can figure out if a person has deeper understanding of a given area or not. That's not too hard. For example, I often have them walk me through certain examples, certain areas. And you keep on asking questions. They say, I did this, so how did it happen? What did you do? Who else was involved? What areas did you run into? Who did you get? Just you go through a little bit back and forth. It's not too hard to say if someone is sharing with you a broad thing that someone else did and you were really overseeing the stuff, or someone were actually closely involved, and say, how did you come up with that? But don't you think you would look at this way? Why didn't you look at this way? And you ask, it becomes fairly obvious if someone is actually close to it or someone was kind of overseeing it from distance.
Yeah, were they the driver or the passenger of something? But if don't you think that even then they can talk about their understanding? The failure mode that I have seen, just like you tell me what you've seen, is not a lack of understanding, but often a lack of willingness. Meaning there tends to be this idea that, like, in many cases they're above that work. That they've moved past that work in their career. They have, people to do that work.
Right. Yes, that's a problem.
Does that make sense?
It does. It's a lot of it. So,
and they can still talk about and articulate the problem in a way that's super compelling.
That's true. I have hired executives who were like that. And then, pastor, man, they don't take time to understand, do the stuff. I had a CMO once who, great presence, great communication, came from the high-tech security networking background. I could put him on stage. He could be very, very good. But he never spent time to understand and go to what we do. Because if you don't, you're always going to be generic, blah, blah, blah. You can do that for 10 minutes.
Right.
For a 10-minute conversation, they'll be great. But for a 30-minute conversation, they're not going to convey something meaningful, differentiated to the customer. Or they come up with a better value. That becomes a problem. This is not easy. I think the other technique we have used many times is have some of the senior leaders come and present to us. So we get a group of executives together. Say, here's a problem, walk us through this and this and this. And we find that approach quite good. And you don't pick up that on one-on-one interviews. But when they come and present, and then number of us are assessing what's going on, that has been pretty effective, quite often.
How quickly do you think you can make a judgment on if somebody is working as a leader at the company?
Probably in about 2 months, it starts becoming clear. Okay, then you help for the next 2-3 months to see if you can help them be successful. Okay, and then after that, it starts becoming clear. That's a mistake. It's not going to work. And ideally, we should be able to take an action after that. Often it takes longer.
Almost always it takes longer.
Almost always it takes longer.
Because in some ways, isn't it a bit of an indictment on you and your team that you also couldn't figure out if this was the right person before they came in?
Yeah, I agree. And our goal is to see if we can make them successful.
How often in practice, though, do you feel like once it gets to the point after 2 to 3 months where they need help, you've been able to turn it?
So in a couple of months, you start seeing the weakness and strengths fairly clearly. So you try to help in the areas of weakness. Then another, say, in 6 months mark, you kind of pretty clear where things are, whether they're going to work or not. It starts getting to that level. Now, the two options, maybe you can assign them to a role that's more suitable for them than a broader role. That can work sometimes. And sometimes they're not willing and open for that. Then you'll need a change. And then you go through the process and ask yourself, Jay, are you sitting where you will be 6 months late in making the change? Or are you acting when you should be acting? So I do go through that question many times.
I also am very passionate about my work. It is a major hobby in my life.
Right.
Maybe I have 1 or 2 extra compared to you, maybe, but it's a major passion for me. It gives me more energy than pretty much anything.
Yep.
However,
And that's the energy part I talk about. When people have passion,
yeah,
they have energy. When you have energy, you're not tired. You actually go, you do a lot more of that stuff.
yeah.
Right?
I could go all day.
Right.
I tend to. However, do you ever get worried that the reality is this is not a passion for everybody around you? When you,
I know that.
right,
I know that.
even if they're good,
Right.
that doesn't mean that if it's Saturday afternoon and you're thinking about work,
Right.
that you should call a meeting.
I don't expect them to have the same passion I have.
You don't.
I don't at all.
So if you send an email to one of your executives Saturday afternoon, you don't expect a response?
No. Some will, some won't respond. And look, early on in Zscaler, my team was very, very passionate in engineering. We worked 6 days, every Saturday, literally. And then we got bigger. We would have half a day monthly meeting at the end of the month on Saturday to look at, reflecting back, all this stuff. And over time, the new executive coming from bigger companies, bigger stuff, they didn't really want it. So, okay, we've gone away from that. But a lot of my leaders, they're busy. They don't have time to catch up during the weekdays. So we catch up on weekends. There's a phone call here, phone call there, or here, there. So it never stops, but it's a degrees. Some are this way, some are that way, and you make the most of where they are, what they can do. The more passionate, the more they care, the bigger the role and responsibility. The one who want, you give them certain role. Once they become financially independent, now they no longer want to do all the extra work. And then you say, what's a good role for them? Let's leverage them in the role. You can't really push people beyond what their interest is.
Do you feel like there's a trade-off to passion to career as a passion? Meaning, do you ever feel like you've ever missed some of life's big events because you've poured yourself into your work so much?
A good marriage is kind of making sure you are aligned with each other to help and make it good. She's like me, and in fact, she has no interest in all of these, lots of social and parties and this and that. She would rather sit, read, spend time with kids and family. And
but what about a kid's soccer game or a graduation or that kind of stuff?
Of course, we have never missed that.
You've never missed that?
Yes. My wife has been to more soccer games for my kids than I have. But when there's a bigger soccer game,
you go.
I go. Okay. I went, obviously, graduation is something special. You cannot miss the graduation. It's special.
So those types of things, you feel like, hey, I never prioritized my work ahead of any of those life events.
She and I, my wife and I will look back and say, have we been doing what we should be doing for our kids, spending time? Yeah, we had. When our kids were younger, now it's actually more time has opened up. Okay. We would have, Saturday and Sunday, most of it planned out activities, especially in summer. We're going to take them to Six Flags this weekend, this park this weekend, this year. Going to sit down, study some books together.
So let me ask you this. Let's say you go to Six Flags.
Yeah.
Are you on the phone, on calls, interviewing people, on Zooms, while the kids are riding roller coasters?
So at that time, I was on roller coaster with them all the time. So I was not there as an observer, okay? And the engagement and demand wasn't even that big. The scope of work now is much bigger. Things being on the phone now is a lot more than it was in the first 4 startups.
Why do you think that is? Because the company's just bigger? More important?
Yes.
Do you miss the days when, do you feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders more meaningfully now that this company is so important relative to the previous 4?
You can look at 2 ways. Yeah, I talk to my customers. They tell me Zscaler is a mission critical application. If it doesn't work, our business can't happen. Okay, and it's a big responsibility. We take it pretty seriously. But at the same time, the feeling of being able to secure 48% of Fortune 500 companies who depend upon you to do all this business, it's just very, very exciting to say, you're making a difference in the world. So it's a responsibility, but I think, I'm not sure, why everything you do that's serious is a responsibility in life. And looking at it, you can look at it, it's kind of weight on your shoulder. You can say, I'm playing an important role in doing this stuff. In anything in life. You're playing a sport, in games or whatever. There's a responsibility. You want to go and win. Sure, there's some pressure on your shoulders. No, it's not like pressure of a soccer game that in 2 hours you kind of win or lose. It's a long-term game. But there is, the challenge in figuring out how do you do a better job, or you have a better team to go and win.
Maybe last line of questioning that I wanted to ask you about was how you're leveraging AI internally today. I know you're doing plenty on the external product side and innovating meaningfully on behalf of customers. Internally, what we see is that there's a few low-hanging fruit use cases that enterprises are tending to adopt right now.
Absolutely.
Let's say a coding copilot.
Yep.
Let's say something around customer support.
Yep.
Let's say something around internal knowledge management.
Yep.
Right, whether that's you saw MoveWorks get bought today, or like a Glean or something like that.
Yep.
So there's some there. Those are some of the big rocks.
Yep.
Do you see the same ones? Maybe
Yeah,
something
so-
around getting AEs and reps ready for their. Go ahead.
So our number one was customer support. That was easy to get going, though we got it to this level, but then we realized that our data needs to get better, okay? Because there's so much data, and sometimes the data here is conflicting with the data here. Some were recommended configurations 5 years ago are no longer recommended configurations here. So we're just setting up a focused Tiger team to say, go through all of that stuff and clean it up where we have a monthly goal. Otherwise, the data is 80% right or 90% right. It's kind of not the same thing. So call it phase 2 is making sure we do a focused effort. When I really get after something, I want to put focused effort, focused teams who do nothing but this kind of stuff for a given amount of time. And they have target, the goal, they get it done. Otherwise, it sits in part-time. I'm doing this job, I'm also cleaning the data, and all, it never gets done. That was number one. In software development was number 2 area. It's actually, we're seeing some good results there. Our, what we call Z chat, got launched, over 18 months ago, it has been going up. So it's pretty widely used for lots and lots of questions, information.
Internal knowledge management.
Internal knowledge management. And we are using for sales, but now we want to go to the next level in sales, where a sales rep is bring together even some of the selling questions, positioning, all that stuff, getting trained. That data needs to be kind of cleaned up, organized properly, because the product knowledge is easier. It's always out there in more better shape. Internal selling, what, why here, positioning the product. We're working on taking that data to the next level. So
Are there any other use cases that you see that are clear and obvious to you as ones that you want to go after?
In IT, internal IT has some use cases as well. We have internal IT support is easy. That's a no-brainer. That's similar to a subset of customer support. But we have quite a few people who are in Salesforce customization. A lot of old way of doing stuff. How do we really automate more of that stuff and simplify the stuff?
And then as a technologist, do you feel the urge to take these models and just do it yourself? You have 8,000 people, you have this incredible foundational model, or are you more of a fan of just buying an off-the-shelf solution?
I think I'm a pretty pragmatist in this area. And I'm not even close enough to say I need to do A versus B.
Yeah.
Okay. So the team ends up making the decision. But we're taking a lot of these off-the-shelf models and really build stuff around it. Seems to work well. But for internal stuff, we are actually focused on building a highly optimized security model that's highly optimized for what we want to do for our kind of work.
Yeah. And you have all the data.
Exactly so. So it's fun. AI is fascinating. It's kind of, you wonder what the world will look like in 10 years and 20 years.
Yeah. Well, as a representing venture capitalists, I hope you continue to also buy a few things off of the shelf. Otherwise, there's going to be 3 models that rule the world, and we're all in trouble here.
Yeah, but I think models will need optimization for a given area, just like for cyber.
Just like for public cloud.
Exactly. You need those models, and I think it's a good thing. The data will play an important role, and that's our key advantage. There's 500 billion transaction logs a day. We probably had that. This is the massive proprietary data that we are training. So we keep on doing experiments, learning. I hired a very focused team recently who will do nothing. No products will be built. just create the AI engine, just like ChatGPT. You're going to ask a question, it should be able to answer any questions about the customer's security situations they want to do. And then you say that's all you do. And we'll build products on top of that. Don't worry about it. So that's a special skill set. These are scientists, PhDs, who can build that stuff. That means model optimization, that means training the data and whatnot type of stuff. So that's kind of one of my biases. Do not throw it in the big engineering organization. This team directly reports to me. Okay, they're incubating the engine only, and that engine gets used everywhere else. So are these the perfect answers for everyone? Probably not. Do I like them? They work for me? Because I kind of got a kick out of it, being able to see this new idea. So, with 200% focus. Because otherwise, it's big engineering, yes, some work on this project, this AI is one of the projects. If something is serious, you were 200% committed with that team. That team lives, sleeps, breathes, and drinks nothing but that. And then often results happen as long as the team is good.
Jay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
That's it for now. If you liked the episode, please leave us a review or go back into the archives where we've done more than 200 episodes with some fantastic folks. This podcast is a Kleiner Perkins production, and I'm Juven. Thanks for listening.